Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of The Big Show. Of course, we call it The Big Show because, well, that's just what I've decided to, that's what I decided to name it and sort of kind of stuck. So hopefully someday we'll get an actual different name for the show. But as far as it goes right now, it's one of these things where we are always trying to figure out how we can make it something really fun and exciting and everything else for you. Of course, The Big Show is brought to you by Archie's on Carson Street. Get down to Archie's, official chicken wing of the fan. I'm sorry. Home of the 80-cent wing, Monday through Thursday, official home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich and all the other good stuff. So, it is one of those things where we are trying to get moving here and trying to get started. As always, we usually start with the Pirates. We usually start with the Steelers, but today, actually, we will start with the Steelers. But it is important to note that the Pirates actually won a game today. And the reason that it's important to note that is because they won with their ace on the mound, and that would be Paul Skenes. He went 7 innings today, gave up no runs. Their bullpen teetered on trying to blow it, but we'll talk about that a little bit. At the end of the day, they found a way to win it. Now, let's talk about the things that we want to talk about for today with regards to the Steelers. I think it's important to note this. The Steelers, to me, there are a lot of people that think they're in some sort of a holding pattern. I'm not one of them. I think they know that they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. I think that they know that what their quarterback situation is. So really, the reality is, at this point, they've got to try and figure out who it is that is going to be part of their running back tandem. Now, I know that there are a lot of different guys that we can talk about. There are a lot of different guys that they have on their radar. There's a lot of different ways they can go. And there's some people that believe that you don't need to really necessarily figure out everyone, in many, many ways. You don't have to figure out exactly who you want at running back because there's so many different ways you can acquire them. I think that's one of the most important things to remember. If you think about it from this standpoint, you have an opportunity at running back to go with a running back by committee. You have an opportunity to, draft a guy that maybe you want to be your guy. You have an opportunity maybe to sign a guy. But the reality of the situation is this. I think it is so important that you get the right fit. And the right fit to me is somebody who complements what you already have at running back. And so when you look at what you really have at running back and who is your guy, I know Mike Tomlin was talking a little bit about yesterday. He was talking about, or was actually Monday, talking about Jaylen Warren. Maybe that they feel good about Jaylen Warren being their guy. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm sold on him being an everyday running back and every down running back, but I am sold on this. When you think about it, he's good enough to be part of a contingent that's good enough to be, what you're looking for if you're going to try and be a playoff team. I don't think Cordarrelle Patterson is actually a guy that you should even think about maybe being part of that equation. Kenneth Gainwell is what he is. Jonathan Ward, those are the 4 running backs on your team. It's clear the Steelers need to get another running back. Now, I will say this. I've heard some people theorize that maybe they should look into the first round to try and get the first running back off the board. I think that's a mistake. At the end of the day, Ashton Jeanty, I have no idea where he's going to go, and I'll tell you why. If he was rated as high as he's rated at any other position, I'd say, well, he won't even be on the board. He might be on the board when the Steelers pick because so many teams have just this weird thing where they decide that they don't want to take a running back in the first round. I look at the numbers that they have, and clearly he's a guy that's probably puts you in a completely different category at the running back position. But do you really want to use your first-round pick on a running back? The Steelers did that a few years ago when they had Najee Harris. They were criticized for it. I would say, basically, if you look at that whole situation, Najee Harris was a reasonably good running back for the Steelers for 4 years. I don't know that he was good enough, though. Not to warrant where they picked him. I just don't know that he was good enough. And since he wasn't good enough, I'm not saying that means you can never take another running back in the first round, but you have to be very, very careful. Because, again, I wasn't in the camp that Jaylen Warren was better than Najee Harris. There were a number of people who thought that. I don't know that I was in that camp. I probably still would give a slight edge to Najee Harris, but it's so slight it's not worth it. One guy was a first-round pick. The other guy was signed as an undrafted free agent. So what are you really looking at that situation from that position? That tells me you probably don't want to use a first-round pick on a running back. I know Jeanty is good. I know he's really good. Maybe he can be the kind of player like Saquon Barkley that, you know what, he's such a sort of a unicorn in so many ways that maybe you look at him and say, okay, well, he's so good that, he's worth taking. Maybe if he slips to the Steelers at like 20 or whatever they are at, maybe I still am not excited about it because I'll tell you why. I think there are some other guys that you can look at and maybe get them in the second round. Omarion Hampton, he's projected late first round. But again, we've seen what happens with these running backs. What if he slips to the middle of the second round? Then the Steelers should think about taking him. Kaleb Johnson probably is going to be there in the second round, and he's a really good player. And I think the big thing about it is, he probably fits into, because he's the kind of running back that they look for, he probably fits into what they're looking for at that running back position. I really believe the Steelers are going to go out and draft a running back. I think that's going to happen. I don't think there's any question about it. It's just a matter of when and who it is. And I think that's the key. Matthew says Giante's going in the top 10. Maybe, but I would be very, very careful, Matthew, and I'll tell you why. He's probably a top 10 talent. He's probably one of the 10 best players in the draft. But there's this weird thing in the NFL right now where they say, you know what? The reality of the situation is we don't need to take a running back in the first round. So why take him? Makes no sense. I don't like it necessarily, but I understand it. And I understand it because the number of guys are around the league who are starting at running back, the number of guys around the league who are contributors at running back, who weren't first-round picks or second-round picks, the number of guys that are, undrafted free agents who actually turned out to be pretty good players, like a Jaylen Warren. That's really right now what the NFL is thinking in terms of running backs. And if you remember, a year ago, there was a lot of running backs that were yelling and screaming because there's just not the money there in free agency for running backs that maybe they think there should be. But I just don't know. Again, I just don't know. Here's another guy says Jeanty will be in the top 10 or he'll be long gone by the top 20. I would be very, very careful with that. I think he's a really good player. And you know what? He should be a top 10 pick. But I would be very careful saying definitively that he's going to be a top 10 pick because of the position he plays. Position he plays probably don't exactly, running backs aren't the kind of guys right now in the NFL that they're looking for. They're just not. They're looking for, corners. They're looking for, quarterbacks, tackles. But in the first round, there is a lot of different organizations out there who subscribe to the theory that you should never take a running back in the first round. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying this. Maybe he's not the guy, right? There will be a really, really good running back when the Steelers draft. Be it Omarion Hampton, be it Kaleb Johnson, be it, Trayvon Henderson. These guys are guys that everybody is really high on. But I just don't know that really, if you're the Steelers, do you really want to use a first-round pick again on a running back after you just did it a few years ago? I don't think that's the case at all. If there's a chance maybe in the second round they can get Kaleb Johnson, they probably should do it. But I just don't know that that's the case. I look at and the other part of it is when you look at the free agent running backs out there, I just am not really all that enamored with any of them. I wasn't really enamored with any of them before guys went off guys got taken off the board. But to me, if you look at it, the best guy now that it's available, let me just take a look at who's available. There's really not very many guys at all. I just feel like when you look at really the list, all of them are pretty much signed. There's really not anybody left for the Steelers to sign at running back. So I do think they will have to draft a guy. They will use a pick on a guy. The one interesting name that everybody thinks is a Steeler because of the way he plays and all that good stuff is Cam Scatterbo, right? The guy from Arizona State. He's one of those guys who basically came from off the radar, had a pretty good season, and then went crazy in his bowl game, and probably his stock has risen higher than it maybe should. But he's 5'11", 215, runs a 4.65 40. He's the kind of guy a lot of people want to be a Steeler, right? And I hate to say it this way because some people probably get offended by it, but he's a white guy, sort of like Merle Hodge, one of these guys that's a tough, hard-nosed guy that gets a lot of, tough yards and all that stuff. If the Steelers can get him in the fourth round or something, maybe. But again, you don't want to overdraft these guys because there's a lot of guys that you can pick who all probably can get the job done based on what you're looking for. You're not looking for a starting running back. The starting running backs are going to be guys that, are going to cost a lot of money and everything else. But reality is, what's his name? Cam Scatterbo. He's a guy, you bring him in as your backup. The only issue with that is he probably is going to be very similar to Jaylen Warren. You want to find one of those scat backs, one of those third down backs that you can throw the ball to and all the other good stuff that happens. That's probably what you're looking to do because you're not going to duplicate what you have already in Jaylen Warren. It just doesn't make sense. Some people want you to, but it does not make sense, period. And that's what I would tell you when you look at it from that standpoint. It really is going to be important now to remember that. You got to have a guy who is sort of like your, what do they call it, the yin to the yang, right? You got to have a guy that does something different. And that's what I would tell you. He really hasn't. If you get a guy that's just sort of a straightforward, hard-nosed, tough rusher, you already have that in Jaylen Warren, period. So I just feel like it is important really to note that the Steelers are probably going to add one more running back, and my guess is it's going to be in the draft, but I don't think it's going to be a high draft choice. I just don't. Feel like it's going to be a guy they pick maybe sort of in the fourth or fifth round. It'll be somebody that sort of complements what Jaylen Warren does. That would be what I would be willing to bet is the case. The game is always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So you get down there, say hello to Archie, tell him that Paul Zeise sent you. And by the way, if you want to get down there on Monday night, I'll be there Monday night for the national championship game. We can enjoy some wings and, watch some basketball and catch up. So if you're in the area looking for a place to watch the national championship game on Monday night, well, to me, get down to Archie's and join me, and we'll have a good time. Now, let's move forward. I would tell you this much right now. I've heard a lot of people say that, if you think about it, I would say that Paul Skenes, they have to do everything in their power to try and make sure that they sign him to a deal and everything else, because, they're not going to be able to sign him, a couple years, so they might as well try and do it. I saw somebody today throw out a number, which is the Pirates need to offer him 10 years, $250 million, and see what happens. I have to laugh when I hear these people say this. I just do. Why would he take $250 million for the Pirates, from the Pirates? Because it really, I think if you think about it, it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to command, even in arbitration. He already has a lot of money. He's not one of these players who, needs money. He already has a lot of money. That's not to say that he wouldn't be open to signing a deal. But if he signed a deal for 10 years, he's 22 years old right now, for $250 million, he would be taking away 4 of his best earning years. And I don't know that he wants to do that. Now, if the Pirates were serious about making a move like this, and they probably aren't going to be able to do it because they can't afford to do things like this, it would have to be 10 years, $35 million, maybe even $40 billion. Because here's the thing. $25 million a year, which would be 10 years, $250 million. $25 million a year, do you know what? Not even in the top 12 or 13 of the contracts for pitchers right now. Not even in the top 12 or 13. So 5 years from now, it's probably not even in the top 20, 25 maybe even. And 10 years, 7 or 8 years from now, it's nowhere close to the top. So if the Steelers wanted it to happen, if the Pirates wanted it to happen, you know what they would have to do? Probably make it $350 million. And I don't think they're going to do that. But I think that's the reality of the situation. Honestly, 10 years, $350 million is where you would probably have to start with Paul Skenes. And you'd hope that he would, he would be interested in money now and, the guarantee of it all and all the job security or the financial security that comes with it. But here's what I try and tell people when they, argue with me about this. Well, he should take the $250 million because the reality is $250 million is a lot more than he has right now. It's bird in hand and all that other stuff. That's not how these guys think. They're not thinking that they're going to get injured. They're not thinking that they're, maybe they're going to get hurt or whatever. Here's what they're thinking. Let's throw Ohtani out of the discussion. It's ridiculous to have him in the discussion because he's getting paid $70 million because he's a position player and because he's a pitcher. Zach Wheeler is the highest paid pitcher at $42 million. Jacob deGrom, $37 million. Blake Snell, $36.4 million. Garrett Cole, $36 million. Corbin Burns, $35 million. Tyler Glasnow, $27.3 million. Max Fried, $27.25 million. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, $27.1 million. Carlos Rodon, $27 million. So what's my point? I think it's very simple. If you're Paul Skenes, you're looking at this list, and you're like, there's not a guy on this list that's better than me. And I'm 22. So why would I take a deal for $25 million a year for 10 years? It's just not the way that the Pirates do business. It's not really the way that anybody is going to do business. And so I think that if the Pirates really wanted to sign him, they'd have to offer him like $350 million over the next 10 years and hope he's willing to say, yeah, that's enough. But he's not going to not take a deal simply because, well, I don't know, I might get hurt. I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't believe he's going to take a hometown discount because he wants to stay here, because he really has no ties here other than he plays for the Pirates. So to me, it's a fun discussion to have, but the reality is it's not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because the Pirates are just not going to spend that kind of money. It's not how they do business. It's never how they do business. They've never done business this way. They've given guys like, Andrew McCutchen, $51 million or whatever it was, right? They gave him a decent deal. Tabata, they gave him a little bit of money before, they bought out his arbitration years. Polanco, I think they did that with. Marte, maybe. None of those deals broke the bank. If you're Paul Skenes and you're making right now, I think, $800,000 a year, you might listen to the pitch, but your agent's going to say to you, listen, 10 years, $250 million. If you ride it out the way you're going to ride it out, right? 5 years from now, you could sign you'll be 27. You might be able to sign a 10, 11, 12-year deal worth $600 million. And by the way, your years when you're in arbitration, you're probably going to get the max. You're probably going to get a ton of money. Because if you continue to do what you do, which is every time you go out to the mound, you just basically dominate, it's going to be a really, really difficult discussion for any team to say we want to get you at X amount of dollars. You can command whatever you want. I mean, today Skenes went 7 innings, 6 strikeouts, 3 hits, 1 run. And, he was dominant the entire game. The bullpen was a little bit shaky, but they got it done. Holderman stunk again. I'm not sure why we have to continue to watch him go out there. But Barecki and Santana did their job. They did okay. But at the end of the day, you've got Paul Skenes. I'm going to say it right now. You probably have the best pitcher in baseball, period. And if he's the best pitcher in baseball, what are we talking about here? Why would he take $250 million from the Pirates over 10 years? That would be way undervaluing himself. Way, way undervaluing himself. And I just don't think he's going to do that. And here's the other reason why I don't think he's going to do that. Honestly. Because at the end of the day, he's got an agent. His agent is going to look at it and say, listen, Paul, we could do a $250 million or $300 million deal for 10 years right now, and you'd have all the financial security you need. But, you've got 2 more years where you're going to have to make nothing. Your first arbitration year, you're probably going to make $25 million. And then you'll make another $25 or $30 million the next year. So reality is you're leaving a lot of money on the table because unlike a lot of guys who have signed these kinds of deals where they let teams buy out their arbitration years and everything else, you've got leverage. You're going to leave money on the table if you do like this. That's the reality of it. There's a lot of people that are wondering about the Yankee series coming up, by the way. Why didn't you have Paul Skenes pitch the Yankee series? Why not have him pitch the Yankee series in the home opener and all that other good stuff? I'm going to give you the easiest and the shortest answer ever. Because after the weekend, they play 3 games against St. Louis, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The only way they're really selling tickets to those games is if Paul Skenes is starting one of those games. A weekend series against the Yankees at home is going to sell a lot of tickets. They don't need Paul Skenes to sell tickets this weekend. That's just being honest. And so, I feel like people are all angry because Skenes has pitched twice on this road trip, but he won't pitch in the home opener against the Yankees. And wow, it'd be great to watch Paul Skenes pitch against Aaron Judge and, whoever else. I don't even know if Giancarlo Stanton's healthy, but, Paul Goldschmidt, that entire lineup. But why would you do that? You have to think in terms of the way Bob Nutting thinks. Bob Nutting is thinking of the gate, tickets. And he's smart enough to know that Friday is the opener. It's sold out. Saturday at 4 o'clock, if the weather's decent, whatever tickets are left are probably going to sell out. Sunday will be close to a sellout. You don't need Paul Skenes to sell tickets. You just don't. Monday night at 6 o'clock against St. Louis, probably nobody else. Period. Tuesday against St. Louis, I think it's a 6 o'clock game. Probably not many people that are going to be right over here. Right? Right there is the PNC Park. I can look at it, I can turn and look at it. You're not probably getting people in the stands unless Paul Skenes pitches. Because people will pay money to go watch Paul Skenes pitch. And that's really kind of what this team is reduced to. And that's just it. It's reduced to how are we going to get people in the door so that we can pay the bills? And one of the things that's easy to do is say, well, if we throw Paul Skenes out there one of those days, he's probably going to sell some tickets. Period. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking to do. And I think that's really kind of, why when people say, well, I don't understand why they didn't pitch him, on a schedule where he naturally could have pitched Friday, because they don't need him Friday. They don't need to sell tickets on Friday. Now, I probably should react to the fact that Holderman and Santana got it done, but it doesn't move the needle at all for me. Not even a little bit. I mean, these two guys are what they are. Holderman didn't really get it done. I mean, Barecki got it done. Santana got it done. Holderman didn't, but the reality is all they needed to do is get 6 outs. They did it. Give them credit. Holderman wasn't very good. I don't know why we continue to go to him, but they do. And as long as they go to him, you have to hope that he's going to be good enough to get the job done. That's all I would say from today's game is the bullpen got 2 innings done, which they gave up a run, but they were able to get, secure the win and help the Pirates hold on and make sure that Paul Skenes got his first win of the season. For a while I was a little worried about it, but they found a way and they got it done. And I think that's when Paul Skenes pitches, that's what you need, period. You need to win those games when Paul Skenes is pitching, because the bottom line is he's going to give you an opportunity to win. And if you don't win them, you're not going to win enough games by the end of the year to really get to where you need to get to. Let's see. Tomorrow we'll do it again. We'll have a good time. Sure, tomorrow we'll have some more to talk about, hopefully with the Steelers, maybe with Aaron Rodgers, but we'll see.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.